What's up, everybody? Today we're diving into some of the most insane mistakes ever made, the kind that changed history and put people in impossible situations. Get ready for some wild rides because we're uncovering the moments where one wrong move had catastrophic consequences. You won't believe some of these stories. So buckle up and get ready to be shocked. Make sure you stick around until the very end because each story is more unbelievable than the last. Alright guys, let's set the scene. It's 1912 and the Titanic, the biggest, most luxurious ship ever built, is about to embark on its maiden voyage. People are calling it Unsinkable. This thing was massive, a floating palace, the epitome of engineering at the time. They thought this thing could survive anything. Passengers boarded, excited for their journey across the Atlantic. First class was living it up, enjoying extravagant dinners, live music, and the lap of luxury. Little did they know tragedy was about to strike. Out in the icy waters of the North Atlantic, the Titanic encountered an iceberg. The crew didn't have a good system for spotting icebergs. They relied on lookouts with binoculars, and on that fateful night, visibility was poor. They received warnings about ice, but they didn't take them seriously. Boom! The unsinkable Titanic hit an iceberg, tearing a massive hole in its side. Panic ensued as people realized the gravity of the situation. The ship was going down. Imagine the chaos, guys. People scrambling for lifeboats, families being separated in the pandemonium. There weren't enough lifeboats for everyone on board, a tragic oversight that cost many lives. As the Titanic sank deeper, the band famously continued to play, their music a haunting soundtrack to the unfolding tragedy. Over 1,500 people lost their lives in the icy waters that night. The sinking of the Titanic became a symbol of human hubris, a stark reminder that even the most advanced technology can fail. It led to major changes in maritime safety regulations, with stricter rules about lifeboats, radio communication, and iceberg patrols. Okay guys, get ready for this. The year is 1986. The location, Chernobyl, Ukraine in the former Soviet Union. A nuclear power plant meant to provide energy instead became the site of one of the most terrifying disasters in human history. It all started with a safety test, a routine procedure, or so they thought. But this wasn't just any test, it was riddled with flaws from the start. The reactor design had inherent weaknesses, and to make matters worse, the personnel operating it weren't adequately trained for this kind of scenario. Things went south quickly. A power surge during the test caused an uncontrolled chain reaction inside the reactor. This wasn't just a minor malfunction, this was a full-blown meltdown. The reactor core overheated, and in a matter of seconds, a massive explosion ripped through the facility. The force of the blast blew the roof off the reactor building, spewing radioactive material high into the atmosphere. Imagine, guys, a city-sized cloud of deadly radiation spreading across Ukraine, Belarus, and even into parts of Europe. The immediate aftermath was chaos. Firefighters, unaware of the invisible danger they faced, rushed to contain the blaze, exposing themselves to lethal doses of radiation. The nearby city of Pripyat, home to many of the plant's workers and their families, had to be evacuated. The Soviet Union initially tried to cover up the extent of the disaster, but the truth, like the radiation, couldn't be contained. The world watched in horror as the human toll of the disaster became clear. Thousands have been diagnosed with cancer as a result of radiation exposure, and the area around the plant remains heavily contaminated, a ghost town frozen in time. Chernobyl serves as a chilling reminder of the awesome power of nuclear energy and the importance of responsibility in its management. Chapter 3. Challenger. A space tragedy. We all grew up with dreams of space exploration, right? The wonder, the possibility, the sheer daring of it all. In 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger captured the world's imagination. It was a symbol of American ingenuity and our ambition to push the boundaries of human achievement. On January 28, millions around the world, including schoolchildren, tuned in to watch the Challenger launch. On board were 7 astronauts, including Krista McAuliffe, who was set to become the first teacher in space. Excitement filled the air as the countdown reached 0, and the Challenger roared off the launch pad, soaring skyward on a plume of fire and smoke. But just 73 seconds into the flight, tragedy struck. High above the Earth, the Challenger disintegrated in a blinding flash, breaking apart into a fiery debris field that rained down into the Atlantic Ocean. Millions watched in stunned silence as the unthinkable unfolded before their eyes. The joy and anticipation of moments earlier were replaced by shock, disbelief, and profound sorrow. The nation mourned the loss of 7 brave astronauts, their dreams cut tragically short. The investigation revealed a series of technical failures and flawed decision-making. The O-rings, rubber seals designed to prevent hot gas from escaping the solid rocket boosters, had failed due to the unusually cold temperatures on the morning of the launch. Engineers had warned about the O-ring issue, but their concerns were overruled by managers facing pressure to keep the launch schedule on track. The Challenger disaster sent shockwaves through NASA and the nation. It led to a temporary halt to the space shuttle program while engineers worked tirelessly to address the design flaws and improve safety protocols. The legacy of the Challenger crew lives on, inspiring generations to reach for the stars while never forgetting the lessons learned from that fateful day. It forced us to confront the human cost of our pursuit of knowledge and the importance of never compromising safety in the face of ambition. Chapter 4: Napoleon's Big Blunder, the Invasion of Russia. Picture this, 1812. Napoleon Bonaparte, the Emperor of France, the conqueror of Europe at the height of his power. He had an army so massive, so powerful they called it the Grande Armée. He set his sights on Russia, determined to bring the Tsar to his knees. Napoleon's ambition knew no bounds. He believed he could conquer anything, anyone. But Russia was different. Napoleon's invasion of Russia is one of the biggest military blunders in history, a story of ambition, hubris, and the unforgiving power of nature. He led his Grande Armée, over 600,000 strong, into the vast expanse of Russia, confident of a swift victory. He underestimated the Russians. They refused to engage in a decisive battle, adopting a scorched earth policy instead. They burned their own fields, poisoned their wells, and retreated deeper into the Russian heartland, leaving nothing but desolation in Napoleon's wake. The French army, accustomed to living off the land, faced starvation. The Russian winter, brutal, relentless, set in early that year. Temperatures plummeted, and the French, ill-prepared for such extreme conditions, began to freeze in their tracks. The once mighty Grande Armée was decimated by hunger, disease, and the relentless Russian winter. Horses died by the thousands, cannons were abandoned for lack of draft animals, and soldiers, once proud warriors, were reduced to scavenging for scraps. Napoleon's dream of a swift victory turned into a desperate fight for survival. The retreat from Moscow was a nightmare. Harassed by Russian forces, weakened by hunger and exhaustion, the French army marched through blizzards and frozen wastelands. Thousands upon thousands of men, horses, wagons, stretched out in a seemingly endless column, slowly succumbing to the cold, the hunger, the despair. Napoleon, once invincible, was forced to abandon his army and flee back to France, his reputation in tatters. The invasion of Russia marked a turning point in Napoleon's fortunes, weakening his empire and ultimately leading to his downfall. Chapter 5: The Ford Pinto, When Safety Takes a Back Seat. Okay guys, we're shifting gears now, moving from historical blunders to a story about corporate greed and the devastating consequences of putting profits over people. This is the story of the Ford Pinto, a car that became infamous for all the wrong reasons. In the 1970s, the American auto industry was booming, and Ford wanted a piece of the action. They rushed the Pinto into production to compete with smaller, more fuel-efficient foreign cars. Speed and cost-cutting were the priorities, and safety, well, it took a back seat. Ford engineers discovered a terrifying design flaw during crash tests. The Pinto's gas tank, positioned behind the rear axle, was vulnerable to rupture in even low-speed rear-end collisions. Imagine this: a minor fender bender, the kind we've all experienced, could turn deadly. The impact could cause the gas tank to rupture, engulfing the car and its occupants in flames. Ford knew about the problem. They had internal memos, they had the crash test results, but they chose to look the other way. Why? Because fixing the design flaw would cost money, and they were more concerned with profits than people's lives. They made a calculated decision, a morally bankrupt decision, to prioritize profit over safety. They figured it was cheaper to pay out lawsuits from potential deaths and injuries than to recall and fix the faulty design. It's a chilling example of corporate greed at its worst. As you can imagine, people were outraged. The Pinto became a symbol of corporate indifference to human life. The lawsuits came, as they were bound to. The Ford Pinto scandal became a turning point in automotive safety regulations. It led to stricter crash test standards and forced automakers to take safety concerns more seriously. That's it for today's video, guys. We covered some heavy stuff from shipwrecks to nuclear disasters to corporate greed. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.